What's going on, guys? It's your boy Ubisoft_gamer here, coming at ya with another tier list. And based on my most recent For Honor video, the best zone in the game, a lot of you guys wanted to see a zone tier list video, so that's exactly what you're going to be bringing. And just a little precursor for this, I did kind of somewhat collaborate this with Half Let the Zone Fly, and I sent him my first original list, and he kind of gave me a little feedback, and then I ended up just, taking some of his stuff into consideration, and then making this final list. So, shouts out to Deadfly for a little bit of help on this. But when we're looking at zones, right, we're going to be looking at a couple of different things. First off, if the zone is just a decent offensive tool to use, I'm kind of looking at both duels and Dominion for this, because, certain situations can call for different stuff. And then, secondary thing for the zones is if it's good for minion clear on, like the B points usually, because if you're able to give a pretty good zone to clear out of the way a bunch of minions relatively quickly and rejoin your team for fights, it can be, pretty good, even if it's not the greatest offensive tool. Again, what we do in this is we tier them from S to D, D being just not very good, and then S being, yes, that's very good. And remember, when I look at these, I'm not saying that, when I put them, I'm not ranking them 1 through 22, and I'm not saying that, if someone's in D tier, they're high D tier or they're low D tier. They're just in D tier. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. Obviously, there is going to be a little bit of opinion on here. You guys might disagree with it. I understand. You can let me know your reasoning in the comments, and I'd be more than happy to have a discussion about it. So, without further ado, let's get into the D tier. Now, starting off in the D tier, we have the Lawbringer zone. And I know, when you guys think of Lawbringer, the first thing that probably comes to your mind is versatile, right? But when you think of the Lawbringer zone, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? I can tell you, it's probably not versatile. It's probably, wow, this move is shit, or wow, wait, Lawbringer has a zone? Question mark. So, the main thing with this, it's so slow, and it's one of the zones in the game that is only like a single hit. There's a couple of characters that have single hit zones, Orochi being one of them, Warden, Raider, Warlord, stuff like that. But theirs are a little bit more effective in the fact that they're probably faster or maybe have an unblockable property to it. Lawbringer's doesn't have that. Yes, he can get some hyper armor if he does a parry and then zone, but that's just not enough to really make it a great tool. And the minion clear on it's pretty lackluster. I'd say it's not that great. You're probably maybe clearing on it average maybe 2 to 6 minions probably per zone. Sure, if you're getting a nice clump up, you might be able to get a little bit more, but it's nothing that you're just going to open up and do and use a zone from a Lawbringer to try to get damage, because it's just not that strong. Then we have your boy Shugoki, which, Shugoki is probably not, I don't know, it's hard to say who has the actual worst zone in the game. There's some different things that make like some of the zones in D tier just really bad, but Shugoki's main thing is kind of similar to that of Lawbringer, which it's so damn slow, and when you parry a Shugoki, they can get punished pretty easily, especially if like you're able to take off that hyper armor and still get more stuff on there. Their damage is just going to start piling up, and it's something that you're not going to really initiate with just because of how slow it is. You do have the option to feint the first one after the first attack hits, which can throw some people off, because the feint animation almost looks like the second part of the zone might come through, so that might be a little bit better, but it honestly does not work very good, especially you're not going to really use it in duels that much, or 4v4s. You're going to probably just look for charged heavies and things of that nature. It's okay for minion clear if you're able to get the angles right. Sometimes, it just wants to miss all the minions even when you direct it, so that kind of sucks. And the damage trade-off versus, the speed of the attack and the amount of stamina it uses, I don't think it's just not a good one. Now, these next two characters kind of suffer from the same thing, and the first one that we're going to be looking at is Shinobi. Now, Shinobi's zone is quite slow. It's a pretty long zone as well, and the really, really bad thing about Shinobi's zone is the fact that you can't feint it. So even if you get hit, let's say by the first part of the zone, you can still put your block back onto there, wait for that final hit to come through, and then parry and get a punish. That is just, basically they outplayed you to the extent where they got the hit on you when you weren't expecting it, but they now have time to kind of come back and then parry, and you don't have the option to feint it, which kind of sucks. The clear on it is okay. Like I said, it's not terrible, but it's not the greatest. You can get a decent amount because it does have a nice little area of spread on it with the little like flip kick that Shinobi does on it. But yeah, the main fact, when you get punished basically for no reason for throwing the attack just because you can't feint it, it's not going to be that great of a zone. The final character in the D tier is going to be Centurion, and like I said, he kind of suffers from the same thing that Shinobi does in the fact that he can't feint his zone. I will say Centurion Zone is a lot better for clearing than all the characters in the D tier, just because it's got the 3 hits and it's got a pretty nice spread to the actual the sword swings, which is pretty nice. And I know you can kind of confirm a zone after kick if they're not blocking to the side that the zone comes from, but that's really only going to be effective if they're on very low health, because if you do that at high health, then they're just going to parry, you know, the later part of the zone. So Shinobi and Centurion not being able to feint their zones makes them really, really bad, and honestly, they might have the worst, even though Shugokis and Lawbringers are so slow. The fact that, you know, you can't feint these ones is pretty bad. Maybe Lawbringer's still on there too, just because it's a single hit, but yeah, again, Sense not that great. Moving now into the C tier, which is just a little bit better than D, but still not that great. We're gonna start out with Highlander. You guys remember back when the punishes, the GB punish with Highlander used to be the zone? Those were the days, right when he came out. And then the main reason that Highlander's in C is just because of the clear. It's got a very large radius, and you can clear basically a whole line of minions in almost one zone. So the fact that you can do that and then rejoin your team makes it a little bit better, but you're not going to be using this in offensive play because it's so slow. You can feint it, however, but it does take a ton of stamina as well. So it's just a little bit better because of the clear, but definitely not an offensive option I would use. So the next one on here is going to be Nusha, and main reason with her, you know, she can follow up her zone into a trap, and if that does actually connect, you're getting yourself 45 damage, and that is quite a lot of damage, don't get me wrong. But man, this thing has the probably longest windup of any zone in this entire game, so you're probably not going to get the zone off or the trap off, so you're probably either going to get hit out of it, which is like what most people do, to avoid the trap, or they're just going to be able to, you know, punish you in different ways. You're not getting the zone off way too much. That's why you see not too many people actually who play Nusha go for the zone or the zone trap. They'll mostly go heavy or heavy traps, and it's just mainly because it's so slow, and the risk versus reward for it is not that great. Next person in C is going to be the Shaolin. Now, Shaolin zone is a lot faster, and it does have 3 hits. You can feint it. It's pretty decent for minion clear. Again, in the circle motion that it makes, you are able to take out a decent amount of minions, but the main reason why it's low on this list is because the zone only does about 10 damage each hit, so you're not going to be getting hit by a Shaolin zone, hopefully multiple times to stack up the damage. I think that would be pretty ridiculous to get hit by all 3 hits of the Shaolin zone. I mean, at most 2, but then that still puts it about 20 damage, and you know, it uses about 2/3 to 3/4 of your stamina if you want to like feint it after one of the hits, so the reward for 10 damage to try to use your zone isn't that great. The final one on the C tier is going to be Valkyrie, and Valkyrie's zone is, again, it suffers from a large windup that's pretty damn slow. You can feint it as well after the first hit, or if the first hit doesn't connect, you can cancel into a shield bash and kind of keep your combo going, which is why it makes it a little bit better to use. You can also use it to clear minions relatively effectively, I would say, and the animation of kind of the zone almost kind of looks similar to that of a heavy attack throwing on there, so you might be able to mess up some timing, but it is just so slow, and the first hit is always going to go through. So it's pretty much an easy parry bait. So that's why it's on C and not anywhere higher. Moving on into B tier, these are the pretty just average zones. They can be effective, they can be punished, both they can work off on there. You can have some good punishes with them. Starting off on there, we're going to be Warlord, because the main reason with that is it is a 25 damage heavy parry punish, which is definitely pretty strong in the game. It's a lot of like heavies for most characters do 25 damage, and you're usually not able to get those until like lights and stuff, light parries and everything, and it has really good tracking with it and range, but it is very bad at clearing minions, and you're not going to be able to get too many zones off when trying to clear with them, and you're probably only be hitting like 2 or 3 minions with each zone, so it's going to be a little bit difficult for you for clearing, but just for the fact of the heavy parry punish, that's why I'm going to be putting it in B. The next character is going to be Raider. Now, Raider's zone does have the unblockable property to it, however, it does have a lot of, I would say, guard break vulnerability, at least from the start up. He can be guard broken out of it pretty easily. A lot of the times, though, you can still follow up some good attacks with it. It has really good AoE damage, I guess, in a team fight scenario, especially with Revenge. You're able to clip multiple people pretty effectively just because of how long the actual range of that zone will actually fly out when target swapping and everything. You also, when carrying someone and you throw them onto the ground, sorry I hit my mic, you can get an unblockable when they're thrown on the ground, and once you knee someone as well, you can usually get the unblockable off. Not too many people can actually get the parry timing on there, so you get a pretty nice punish from that. However, it is, you know, relatively slow. You can but it does have options, because you can feint it or you can go into the stun tap. Even though like stun tap's not a great move, it still has options with it, but it can be punished, and you know, that's the main reason why it's not anywhere higher. Now, next one is Warden. I feel like Warden's zone before was almost worse and better at the same time, because the animation of old Warden zone made it a lot quicker, it seemed. And the thing that made it worse is because when you used to just be able to block a Warden zone, you would be able to get a free guard break. That's not the case anymore. So the fact that you can't just block and get a guard break makes it a little bit better, but the animation change from the Warden zone kind of makes it, I think, a little bit easier to parry, I would say, now than what it was before. And for clearing minions, it's not that big of a range as you would think. You're probably getting maybe 4 to 5 minions with it, with a zone, and you know, you can probably only throw out 2 or 3. Even with body count, you're probably still going to be depleting your stamina pretty quickly, because you're not getting as many minions back as what your stamina cost is for hitting it. And so for that reason, that's why it's not super up there. The next character that we're looking at in the B tier is Shaman. Now, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty darn sure you can still get a zone off of a heavy parry as Shaman, and that allows you, it's a 4-hit zone. You can do the 2 hits, you can go into a bleed into any direction, and then you can also let the zone fly through, which gives you just a little bit more options on there. And the fact that, you know, you're getting multiple hits in there, you're usually getting pretty good damage off, and being able to potentially mix your opponent up by either continuing to throw the zone through or going maybe bleed to the left, bleed to the top, still catches a lot of people off, even though a lot of people can still parry it. You can then set yourself up for maybe a bite or something later on the road, so it's a pretty good setup tool for Shaman to have. But the clear on it's not that great. It's not a very wide range. Obviously, she doesn't have very large weapons, so you're not going to be taking out too many characters when you're trying to clear minions. Probably like 4 or 5 per zone, so that's kind of why it's not much higher. Next character in B is going to be Orochi. Orochi's zone is pretty much only used as an offensive tool. It's pretty quick. It can still be parried, don't get me wrong, but it is a pretty quick option that, you know, when mixed up with some of the other attacks you're not necessarily expecting. It is absolute crap for clearing minions, all right? You're probably getting maybe like 1 to 3 minions per zone, and, you know, not having body count on Orochi, there's no real need to actually clear with that move, and you don't have great clear as Orochi anyways, so it's kind of just, the whole kit for that is not built around, you know, getting rid of those soldiers on B. So the fact that it's only for offensive options, but it can still be blocked pretty easily, is, you know, why it's only in B. The final character in B tier is going to be Aramusha. Now, Aramusha does have a few options with his zone. It's a 2-hit zone, with the final hit being unblockable. You can feint that unblockable and go for like a guard break or let it fly through. Get some pretty good damage. If you only get the first part to hit through on the zone, you're doing 15 damage, but it is pretty easy, I think, to block. And if you do block it, you can just roll out of the second hit of the zone, so you can actually avoid being hit with the unblockable or getting guard broken from that. So if you can counter it pretty easy, just like a lot of stuff from Aramusha can be countered just like backstepping and rolling out of it. He doesn't have like good tracking with his attacks. Kind of the range in which he has isn't that good, and that's why it's kind of not as high on the list as you might think, even though it is kind of quick and does have the unblockable property. Plus, not very good at clearing minions when you have an infinite light chain that is almost just as fast, and you can take out multiple minions with each hit. And having body count, that's just what you want to use instead of the zone. It's just not the best tool for Aramusha. Now, going into A tier, these are pretty damn good zones, but they're just not quite into the S tier. Starting off with it, we have Peacekeeper. Obviously, Peacekeeper, it's a 400 MS option select, basically, if you want to really do it, making it a very, very good tool in duels. However, it is kind of like one of her only like good things on the kit, so you're kind of expecting it a lot of the time, even though it is very quick. The option select property of it is pretty darn good, though. It's not very good for clearing, though. It's not too great. You can let the zone fly now, or they changed it to where you can actually cancel it into the bleed. However, the bleed only goes to the top, making it not that difficult. You don't have to, you know, kind of keep your your guard looking at anything. You just have to keep it either on the right side or top if you see it go through, and it's kind of easy to react to both, at least to blocking, not necessarily parrying. So although it is fast and it's a good option select, it's not quite at the top of the list because the rest of her kit isn't that great, so it's kind of all you rely on, so a lot of people are expecting it. Next up, we have Tiandi, and I believe that Tiandi zone's pretty good. You can use it both offensively to kind of start up combos. A combo that I like to do a lot is, you know, zone, then go into the kick, dash out of the kick, do a dashing light, and then do a palm strike and get a light off. It works a lot of the time, and you set that up from the zone. A lot of people don't expect it to come up because it's pretty quick. It has good minion clear because it's got a nice wide radius in which the sword's being swung from Tiandi, but it is, you know, not the fastest zone in there, and it's got quite the windup, so it is pretty easy to sometimes, you know, react to, at least block it or parry it. So the fact that it still can be punished like that, making it, you know, not as strong as some of the other zones that are going to the S tier. It's like got good clear, but it doesn't have great clear. It's got like good damage and good setup, but it's not great setup, so that's why it's only an A. Next character in A is going to be Nobushi. Now, Nobushi's zone isn't really a great tool. When you're fighting one-on-one, you don't want to just really throw out zones. They're pretty easy to parry, honestly. They're not that fast. But when put in a 4v4 setting, it has a very large spread to it. So using it unlocked, you can definitely clip a lot of different characters if you're fighting in a gank scenario. If you're, you know, locked on somebody different, you throw it through, you can probably clip someone else who's trying to fight you, which makes it pretty darn good, and it's probably one of the best clearing zones in the game. It has just a massive radius to it, and you can clear out tons of minions with it. That's probably why it's so high, because it's such a fast clear, and it's definitely a safe option to do when getting ganked. If you're just locked on somebody else, just kind of do it out of lock, and you have a pretty good chance with it. But the fact that it's like not really good in a 1v1 scenario kind of makes it like just a little bit below S. The final character that we have in the A tier is going to be Berserker, and that is because if you actually get like a heavy parry, you can go into a zone, right? Which would be, you know, 24 damage, 500 millisecond zone, and then you can also continue your chain after the zone. If you just throw out the zone from neutral, however, the enemy does have a lot of chances to, you know, at least block the first couple attacks. You can parry like any of the attacks, and you just kind of just block and wait for that last one to go through. You can parry it, but having the ability to follow up a parry punish with a zone and then go into, you know, omnidirectional 400 MS lights is very strong. You can zone and then go into heavy combos, light combos, just keeping the stuff going on there, and having that 24 damage just off of a heavy parry is very, very good. And the main reason it's, you know, it's not S is because it's not very good from neutral, and it doesn't have great clear, even though it does, you know, swing 4 times. It's not in a very, it's just almost in like a straight line, so you kind of have to line yourself up just correctly if you want to clear a lot of minions, but it is a good zone nonetheless. And now we are moving ourselves up into S tier, which is the king of the crop zones. And we're going to be starting off with none other than my main, your boy, Kensei. Before, Kensei zone was pretty awful. The basically only thing that you could do with Kensei zone was to unlock and like tilt yourself to try to get the first hit of the zone off. And then they patched unlock tech and it was bad, but then he got his rework and he got a zone. I wasn't really asking for a zone that great, but it is quite quick. You can feint it after the first hit. You know, it does get parried occasionally, I will say, and people do block it, but it is a really good option because it does come out quite quick, and the clear on Kensei's zone is absolutely incredible. I mean, I tell you what, great clear, and it's got decent damage to it and everything, and it's really, really good range. Kensei, if he has one thing, it's tracking, and I think most people can understand that you've been tracked from like a Kensei light finisher or tracked by a zone. Like, it kind of suctions to people, honestly. It's very, very good, and that's why it's in the S tier. Now, the next person going into the S tier is going to be JJ. Now, you might be thinking that, you know, the zone is pretty good tool. It's 500 MS. It does pretty good damage, but it is kind of one of the easier things, I think, in JJ's kit to actually parry. And if you go from Sifus and throw an attack out of it, it's always going to be the zone. But the main thing that makes this S is, one, it's got very good clear, and you can always just regenerate yourself with Sifus. But when you get a parry, you can just do a zone and it's an unblockable. So that basically makes it very damn good for, you know, being an actual zone tool and dealing with anti-gank scenarios, right? Even in 1v1 situations, let's say you get a heavy parry, you can go for a choke. If the person's not blocking to the left, you actually get the zone confirmed, making that a 33 damage heavy parry punish, which is absolutely ridiculous, right? Say you're fighting 3 people, right? Someone throws an attack at you, you parry it, you throw the zone, it probably clips all of them because it's got an insane like 360 degree like rotation on it, and it's unblockable. Plus those people are out of lock, so they're not going to be able to parry it. Plus you get that confirmed because you parried the person who threw the attack. So it's basically why JJ is one of the kings of the anti-ganks, just with that little thing alone, having that unblockable parry punish option from the zone makes it really good. And plus, like I said, it has pretty good clear, so that's why he's in S. The next one in S tier, not going to be a surprise, is going to be Conquer. Conqueror's zone is like one of the zones that really actually feels like a zone. You know what I mean? When he throws it out, you can't actually get into him. You know, your attacks will bounce off and everything if you try to go for anything. Plus, it is extremely annoying to deal with a conch who is just going to your minions and unlock zoning, because you essentially have nothing to do with them. They can heal on block and they have body count. So they can just essentially just sit on B and just kind of keep on swinging that flail around their head, and you're going to have just an annoying time to deal with it. They can run in back into minions even if you're trying to get damage on them and just kind of keep on zoning, and you're not really able to open up the Conqueror from there. Plus, it is a disgusting option select. So, really hard to deal with that stuff when you just throw that out, right? So if someone tries to put that attack in there, you just throw that zone for the option select. You know, if they feint the attack, they're still going to be probably hit by that, and if they throw the attack through, it just bounces off and you hit them anyways. So it is a pretty damn good zone all around. And then finally, I'm sure basically everyone saw this coming, is Gladiators. Now, Gladiators zone is not great, I would say really at all, for clearing minions. I have to say it's probably one of the weaker ones, but it basically gives you stuff for free, essentially, with the Glad zone, right? Let's say you throw the first hit through, right? It's just basically a punch, right? And if you have punch through on that, hit actually does damage. If you miss, you don't have to throw through the second part of your zone. You can just feint it, and if you do hit it, you get a confirmed damage after it. So it's pretty damn good. Basically gives you stuff for free, and a lot of times people who even dodge it will still get hit by it. But you know, just the fact that you can make the decision, you can't really outplay the Gladiator zone too much. It's like you get hit by it, you're taking damage. They dodge it, they can just feint it, and then you just kind of continue your fight. It's not great in anti-gank scenarios, but it's just like one of the safest moves, if not the safest move in the entire game. So that's why it's an S. So this has been the For Honor zone tier list. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you did, leave a like, comment, subscribe. Feel free to voice your opinions in the comments below. We didn't do an execution tier list on this one because those are going to be coming out, I think, the 24th. Don't quote me on that. They should, because they usually come out a week before the new season starts. And if the season starts on the 31st, that would mean the 24th is when we'd be getting executions. And I kind of want to wait for new executions for one, to kind of, you know, obviously have the most updated list possible. Plus, the Wulin don't have a ton of executions, so it'd be nice to see kind of what they get added in. So that's kind of why I'm waiting for that. That'll probably be the next tier list if we do one. Leave your comments on any other tier lists you'd like to see. This is pretty fun for me because it's like not absolutely focused on the gameplay. It's just kind of fun to do, maybe looking at specific moves or, you know, emotes and stuff like that. I know a lot of people said like mythic outfits, and I'll probably get to those eventually. Like I said, I don't want to be like, yo, For Honor tier list man, but it is kind of fun to do. I'm not going to lie. So if you enjoyed, you know, I would appreciate it if you did all those things I said earlier, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. It's been your boy Tony. Talk to you in the next one. Peace.